Storytelling. The neighborhood on Willow Creek Lane had always been divided. It wasn't a rich part of town, but the residents took pride in their little slice of suburban America. Wide lawns with uneven grass stretched in front of modest homes. Kids rode bikes through clouds of dust and old pickup trucks rattled down the uneven dirt road. The problem was the road itself. Every rainy season, it turned into a muddy trench, swallowing tires and splashing dirty water onto porches. In summer, it baked dry and sent choking dust clouds swirling into houses whenever a car passed. For years, neighbors grumbled about it, but learned to live with the inconvenience. Until Mark stepped in. Mark Reynolds was a wiry man in his late 30s with restless energy and a voice that carried farther than he intended. He wanted the road paved, black asphalt, smooth and strong like the rest of the city enjoyed. He knocked on doors, collected signatures, even gathered money from willing neighbors. He believed progress was overdue, and he was tired of watching his kids cough from the dust every morning before school. On the other side was David Cole. In his early 50s, David had the kind of presence that filled space. He was broad-shouldered with a belly that came from years of beer and barbecue, and a scowl that could silence a room. He lived on the block longer than anyone else, and he had no patience for Mark's ambitions. To David, the dirt road was tradition. It slowed cars, kept outsiders away, and carried memories of decades past. He didn't want shiny asphalt bringing traffic, higher taxes, and what he called fake progress. But everyone knew it wasn't just about the road. Mark and David had hated each other for years. They clashed at HOA meetings, traded insults over property lines, and never missed a chance to outdo one another. The road project was just the latest battlefield in their war. That Saturday afternoon, with the sun baking the dusty lane, the two men finally collided head-on. Mark stood in the middle of the road explaining his vision to a handful of neighbors. He had tied bright orange strings across the ground, marking where the edges of the new pavement would run. Sweat dripped from his brow, but his voice was sharp and determined. Look, it's simple. The road benefits everyone. Our property values go up, our kids can actually ride without eating dirt, and deliveries won't get stuck every time it rains. We can make this happen. The neighbors nodded cautiously. Some convinced, others avoiding his eyes. The tension was thick. Then the slam of a screen door broke the silence. David stormed out of his house. His heavy boots crunched against gravel as he cut through the group, shoving the strings aside with his feet. His face was already red and his jaw worked furiously. "What the hell is this, Reynolds?" Mark turned, his eyes narrowing. "This is progress, David, something you wouldn't understand." David jabbed a thick finger at the strings. "You think you can start building without asking, without a vote? You're nothing but a scam artist, tricking people into giving you cash for your little ego trip." Mark's shoulders tightened. "Scam? You think I'm pocketing money? Every cent is accounted for. Unlike you, I care about this neighborhood. I care about the kids breathing in this crap every day before school. What do you care about? Huh? Sitting on your porch with a beer, yelling at everyone who tries to make things better?" The crowd murmured. A few neighbors nodded with Mark, but most just stepped back. They knew what was coming. David's face turned crimson. He stepped forward until he was chest to chest with Mark. The height difference was stark. David loomed like a wall, but Mark's glare never wavered. "You watch your damn mouth," David growled. "You don't get to disrespect me in front of my house." Mark shoved a finger into his chest. "Or what? You gonna stop me? Do it!" The air froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then David shoved Mark with both hands. Mark stumbled back, his shoes sliding in the dirt. The neighbors gasped. Mark caught himself, then snapped back with a fist, smashing it across David's jaw. The sound echoed like a gunshot. David's head snapped to the side, spit flying. The crowd shouted, some telling them to stop, others already pulling out their phones. But there was no stopping it now. With a roar, David charged.
David's roar was guttural, like a bull charging at a red flag. His boots tore up dust as he barreled straight into Mark, his shoulder slamming into the smaller man's chest with crushing force. Mark staggered backward. The wind knocked out of him, and the two of them crashed into the half-built wall of a neighbor's yard. Bricks rattled loose and fell, thudding into the dirt. Mark tried to push him off, but David's size and weight bore down like a truck. David swung a heavy fist, knuckles splitting the skin along Mark's cheek. Blood sprayed as Mark's head snapped sideways. Gasps rippled through the crowd. But Mark was fast. He ducked under the next swing and rammed his knee up into David's ribs. The older man grunted, stumbling back just enough for Mark to fire a left hook straight into his mouth. Blood burst from David's lip as he reeled, spitting crimson into the dust. The crowd shouted in panic. Some yelled at them to stop. Others screamed to let them fight. Kids cried, clutching their mothers' hands, while a few teenagers recorded every second on their phones. Mark charged forward, fists flying like pistons. He hammered David's ribs, chest, and face with rapid strikes. The thuds were sickening, each one sending sweat and blood spraying. David's head jerked back and forth under the assault, but his massive arms rose, shielding most of the blows. Then, with a sudden roar, David lashed out. His massive fist shot through Mark's guard, colliding with his nose. The crunch was sickening. Mark screamed, staggering back, blood gushing from the bridge of his nose. David didn't hesitate. He grabbed Mark by the collar and yanked him forward, driving his forehead into Mark's skull. The headbutt landed with a crack that made the neighbors wince. Mark collapsed to the dirt, clutching his face, blood pouring between his fingers. "Stay down!" David bellowed, chest heaving, veins bulging in his neck. But Mark didn't stay down. Through the haze of pain, his eyes burned with rage. He rolled to the side, snatched up one of the wooden stakes that had been holding the string, and lurched to his feet. With a wild swing, he smashed the stake into David's shoulder. The wood cracked against bone with a hollow thud. David roared in pain, stumbling back, his arm hanging limp for a second. Mark struck again, the stake whipping across David's ribs, then again across his back. Each blow echoed down the block like the crack of a whip. David spun, fueled by fury, and grabbed the stake mid-swing. With a savage yank, he tore it from Mark's hands and flung it aside. Then he lunged forward, wrapping his massive arms around Mark's waist. Mark kicked and thrashed, but David lifted him clean off the ground and slammed him down onto the dirt road with bone-rattling force. The impact sent a shockwave of dust into the air. Mark wheezed, gasping like a fish out of water. David straddled him and unleashed a barrage of punches, each one heavier than the last. Fists cracked against jaw, temple, and ribs, turning Mark's face into a bloody mess. The neighbors screamed in horror now, realizing the fight had gone beyond control. Mark twisted, adrenaline surging. He bucked hard, flipping David to the side. Both men scrambled to their feet, swaying, bloodied, breathing like animals. Mark grabbed a loose brick from the fallen wall. His hand shook as he raised it, eyes blazing. "I'll kill you!" he shouted hoarsely. David's eyes widened for just a second, then he charged again. The two collided like crashing cars, the brick tumbling from Mark's hands as their bodies slammed together. They clawed, punched, and wrestled in the dirt, each desperate to finish the other. Mark raked his nails across David's face, leaving red trails on his cheek. David bellowed and drove a knee into Mark's gut, folding him in half. Mark wheezed, doubling over, but in a surge of desperation, he hooked his arm around David's neck and wrenched him down. Both men crashed to the ground again, rolling in the dust, fists and elbows flying, blood staining the dirt beneath them. The crowd shouted louder, voices blending into chaos. "Stop it! Call the cops! Somebody help them! Oh my God, they're gonna kill each other!" But no one dared step in. Not yet.
The dust hung thick in the air, choking everyone who watched. Mark and David rolled across the ground, fists hammering into flesh, neither man willing to yield. Blood smeared their faces, their shirts clung to their sweat-soaked bodies, and every breath came as a ragged gasp. David managed to wrench himself on top again, his knees digging into Mark's ribs. He gripped Mark's throat with both hands, squeezing with the fury of a man who wanted nothing less than to crush the life out of him. Mark clawed desperately at David's arms, his legs kicking in the dirt. His vision blurred, black edges creeping into his sight. In one desperate move, Mark grabbed a handful of gravel from the road and flung it into David's eyes. David roared, stumbling back, rubbing furiously at his face. Mark scrambled to his feet, coughing, throat burning. His hand landed on another fallen brick, and without hesitation, he swung it down across David's back. The crack echoed like a gunshot. David staggered forward, slamming against the hood of a parked Ford pickup. The dent rang out metallic and sharp. The neighbor screamed, some turning away, unable to watch. Mark didn't stop. He grabbed David by the shirt and slammed his head against the hood, once, twice, 3 times. Each impact left a bloody smear on the steel. David groaned, barely conscious, his arms flailing weakly. But David wasn't finished. With a guttural snarl, he threw his elbow back, smashing it into Mark's ribs. Mark gasped in pain, loosening his grip just enough for David to spin and ram his shoulder into him. The force sent both men stumbling across the yard, crashing into a wooden fence. The fence gave way with a splintering crack, boards exploding into the air. They fell into the neighbor's yard, rolling across the torn grass. Dogs barked furiously from nearby porches, kids screamed, and one woman yelled for someone to call 911 before they kill each other. David snatched up a jagged fence post, its nails sticking out, and swung it like a club. The wood whooshed past Mark's head, missing by inches. Mark lunged forward, grabbing the post. The two wrestled for control, straining, veins bulging, until Mark kneed David hard in the stomach. David doubled over and Mark ripped the weapon from his hands. He swung it down, the nails grazing David's scalp, tearing skin. Blood ran into David's eye as he roared, slamming his shoulder into Mark and tackling him back through the broken fence onto the road. They landed hard, both groaning, bodies trembling from exhaustion, but rage kept them moving. Mark clawed his way up, spitting blood, and grabbed the side mirror of the pickup. He wrenched it free with a sharp crack and hurled it at David. The glass shattered against David's arm, leaving jagged cuts. David barely flinched, his adrenaline surging too high. He lunged again, wrapping his thick arms around Mark and driving him into the ground with a sickening thud. Dust billowed up, swallowing them both in a choking haze. David's fists rained down like sledgehammers, splitting Mark's lip, swelling his eye, cracking teeth. But Mark wouldn't stay down. Through sheer defiance, he drove his thumb into David's swollen eye. David howled, pulling back, giving Mark just enough room to twist free and drive his knee into David's face. The crunch of cartilage breaking made the crowd groan in unison. Blood gushed from David's nose, running down his chin. Still, David kept coming. Like an unstoppable beast, he grabbed Mark by the hair and dragged him across the dirt, smashing his head into the broken fence boards. Splinters dug into Mark's scalp as he screamed, his fists thrashing wildly. Neighbors were shouting frantically now. "They're going to kill each other. Where the hell are the cops? Somebody stop them!" But still, no one dared step in. The sheer savagery of the fight froze everyone in place. The two men staggered to their feet again, swaying like drunken boxers, blood streaming down their faces. Their chests heaved, every breath a wheeze, but their eyes still burned with pure hatred. Mark spat a tooth onto the dirt. "This ends now." David wiped blood from his mouth, his voice a growl. "It damn right it does." And then they charged once more, colliding in the middle of Willow Creek Lane like warriors who refused to die.